Hello, everyone, and happy Friday. Thanks for joining us for another exciting Advisor Shares AlphaNooner. Today, we've got Noah Hamman back in the mix. We're excited to spend some time talking through what has happened in this short week. It's been busy, even though it's been short. And of course, if you're out there, take any questions, run through any comments, all of that. It's a great way to kind of connect, digest the week. I know a lot kind of zips by as you go through, but a good reminder if you're out there, you can ask those questions, put them in the chat, whichever platform you're on. If you're on X, YouTube, LinkedIn, any of that, you're welcome to ask those there. And while you're there, if you give us a like, thumbs up, share with your friends, of course, it's always appreciated as well. With all that said, thanks for joining, Noah. How's your Friday?
I remember why it was a shorter week. And then I was thinking, oh yeah, it's President's Day. But then I was remembering how you told me for you, every day is President's Day. You celebrate the office every day.
So patriotic. Yeah, no, that's true. I mean, yeah, Washington's birthday, I guess, whatever. Very exciting. Nearby here,
President's
technically,
Day.
right?
I know.
I guess.
We live in our capital. That's why every day is a celebration of our president for you.
There you go. That's true. But no, it was a great, I think, long weekend. Got some good time in, some good refreshment.
Last weekend was?
Yeah, I think in general. Did you do anything exciting? I feel like working.
A long weekend? I don't think so. It's normal stuff. Did you do anything? What did you do? Did you go somewhere?
Nothing crazy exciting. What did I do? I feel like I know we've been talking about hitting up a bunch of weddings. Unsurprisingly, it's baby showers this go. It's baby shower every weekend, which is not bad. It's fine. It's fun. No one does the, I feel like the horrible games that people used to do back in the day, but 10 years ago, 20 years ago, no like melted chocolate in the diaper kind of games, more just hanging out, having a nice drink.
Oof. You ladies know how to party.
I know. But yeah, and they also do more mixed gender ones, which is also interesting. So
wait, what does that mean? Like dudes go to these things?
Yeah, everyone's invited now. I know. Times they are.
But do they go?
I think they do. Yeah, you get like.
Then they play the chocolate doo-doo in the diaper game.
Thank goodness there's none of that. But no, yeah. So it's been a lot of that, and yeah, can't really complain. I think in general. Did you have any highlights? I feel like anything that was.
Of last weekend?
Last weekend?
No.
Probably highlight this week.
Hanging out. Happy Friday, Stevie. No, it's sad to say. I don't think I did anything eventful. And it was probably, yes, a tiny bit of work, tiny bit of housework. We had a friend in town, I think, for a little while. I don't know. Yeah, just a normal weekend.
I was going to say, I feel like the weekend was not as exciting probably for you as this week. I don't want to hyper tease it or what. I could talk about your Nicole Petalides appearance.
Oh yeah. Well, and I'm also forgetting, I watched the Daytona 500 on Sunday, so that was exciting, but that doesn't feel like an accomplishment per se. It's not hard to do that, but I'm happy to see racing back. And I was happy for Jordan's team winning.
Who?
Wait, did you say who?
Yeah. Is it Michael
Jordan?
Is he investing? He's an investor? Okay. God. I don't know. That's a great way.
You are hanging out with too many dudes that go to baby showers and not enough sports dudes.
That is very I know.
Yes, he co-owns a NASCAR team with Denny Hamlin, who also is still a driver and drives for Joe Gibbs Racing. It's a fairly new team. The big controversy in the offseason was, for the most part, it was Michael Jordan suing NASCAR to try to get a more permanent charter-based system, a real equity with the teams in the league. They won, NASCAR settled, which is a pretty big deal, right? To have a new team, someone who would be considered an outsider, obviously from a NASCAR perspective, though Jordan positions himself as a long time NASCAR fan, having grown up in North Carolina. And just a crazy offseason from that lawsuit, between him and, with him and Denny Hamlin and one other team, but a smaller team. Basically, it was all being funded by Jordan. Going through all the drama of the lawsuit. Sad note, Denny Hamlin's parents, like 2 weeks later, his house burned down, which was crazy. So there's lots of drama there, of course.
Wasn't he also the one that his dog passed away, unfortunately?
I don't know. Did his dog pass away for Denny Hamlin?
I thought it was Hamlin who had the dog that he had like a very deep connection with, and a month.
Not that I know of.
Okay.
But I'm sure he has a dog, I would think, right? I think it's probably in part by rule that NASCAR people have to have a dog.
Honestly, it would bring up viewers. I feel like if they did basically like a puppy bowl, but
let
for
the dogs in the car.
Yeah, put them in like a little. The doggles.
It seems unsafe when they're driving around, but maybe. Yeah, sure. But anyway, so and then to have Jordan, whatever, be the team owner of the car that wins the Daytona 500, which is huge for him. You could see how happy he was. I'm happy for him. Hopefully, he and NASCAR. No one probably cares about all the sports talk, but I'll keep talking about it anyways. Hopefully, he and NASCAR have worked over their disagreements in a positive way, and NASCAR should embrace the hell out of someone like Jordan to really start to elevate the sport. The races are so much fun watching cars go that fast and still, banging and beating around. And you got a few crazy personalities in there. And so, if you're going to be a race fan, I would encourage you to watch, if you can, every race. I think you just watch one, it's cars going around a circle, you could probably care less. If you follow the people and the personalities and the fact that it would be as if two baseball teams played each other every game for a season. And one weekend the guy throws at your hitter, right, and you're pissed at him, and you want to throw the ball back at him next week. But then in baseball, in the sort of whatever regular sports world, you don't see them again for a few months. But if you were going to see them again next weekend,
yeah,
that's in a sense how NASCAR works. And golf is the same way, right? Because everyone's playing at the same time with each other, but no one's punching and jabbing and sending you into the fence at 150 miles an hour. That has a tendency to get on your nerves, right? And so it's really that drama that plays out throughout the season and how things go that whatever racing series you watch. I say whatever racing series you watch. Like I watch typically on DVR stuff like MotoGP, but it doesn't really have the same kind of personality, drama and stuff. F1 does, but NASCAR really does because those cars are, basically throwing baseballs at you. It's fun.
I think it is nice to have a bit of a refresher on the sports front because I feel like everything, which is good, has been Olympics all the time. I feel like there's been so much coverage there. I'd be curious if like luge or what is it, the bobsled is your sport of choice because it feels like basically the same thing but on ice.
Yeah, but I like it when everyone's sort of racing at once, right? So whether it's track, so when people are shooting one at a time for, just for time speeds, it's almost like NASCAR qualifying, which is less interesting. But man, when you have the speed skating and all the guys and gals are out there on the ice at once, I love it. I mean, I just love racing of any sort. So, and the more sort of aggressive the racing can be, right? I think that's why I lean more towards NASCAR where they can beat and bang into each other versus Indy where you barely touch or Indy or less Indy actually, but more F1 you touch and your race is done. You can't make up from it. I know ice skating or the speed skating on the short tracks obviously is one of those things where for the most part when they touch you're kind of cooked, but those dudes are on the edge and it's so much fun to watch that stuff. So yeah, I'm a fan of any kind of racing, but in a group racing like that, not a one at a time kind of.
Where you can really see it all come together. It is also crazy. I feel like on that side of things with like ice racing or whatever, you do see those every so often giant wipeouts where, half the team will be ultimately cleared because someone trips or whatever. So it is very kind of high human drama in some way. And I do think while you do see a lot of, if you look back again, 30 years in terms of the Olympics, if you look back 60 years, you can really see how that like fine tuning optimization, like tech has ultimately helped people really refine and optimize in the sport they're in. But ultimately, it still does maintain that kind of human element, which is, kind of fun.
It's fun stuff. And I see Stevie's note about the hockey game. I watched that yesterday. It was exciting.
Yes.
I thought we were cooked. And then 2 minutes to go, right? We get the score and then win it in overtime. So, yeah, congrats to the girls. I'm sure I'll get hate mail or something for this, but I was thinking, man, I'd almost rather see, I think, of women's leagues, right? You can tell me as a representative of the ladies. I'd rather see in the U.S. a professional women's hockey league, I think, than NBA. Now, in general, that's probably me not being that big of a fan of basketball and definitely being more of a fan of, sort of the high-speed contact sports. But yeah, as I was watching the girls play, I was like, man, it looks tough. They are aggressive. It's an enjoyable sport to watch, I guess, is, almost regardless of the gender.
Yeah. I think with all of it, it's cool to see. I think just people optimizing, being the best at their sport is just cool to see. I think it's interesting also on the team side of things versus when it's more individual or even like the bobsledding, I think a small team ultimately.
Yeah. Do you have a favorite professional ladies sports league?
Lady sport. I feel like it sounds so no, not really, but I also don't really have a favorite sports league at
Sports,
all.
anything. Right,
So,
right,
you
right.
know, I
Yeah.
enjoy watching it. I think it's interesting. I think WNBA I know has gained a lot of traction and viewers and all of that.
Yep.
So I can kind of get into that. And I think there are some definitely interesting interdynamics there with I think some of the players ultimately being exes or married is like such an interesting additional overlay there. But yeah, I love a live sport event. I think that's great. Getting a hot dog, getting a drink, hanging out with people, and kind of cheering for stuff is a lot of fun. But yeah, so I don't know. That's
This
me.
will make me sound maybe too highfalutin or snooty, but I think somewhere past 40, I was like, I can't eat those hot dogs anymore.
What? Yeah, I know they're
Just
probably bad for you. Whatever. There's
I
like too
just
much
get a
salt.
burger or something where I'm a bit more confident of where that
Mhm.
protein may have came from. Even a grilled chicken breast you can get at these games now, or all
Yeah,
sorts of crazy stuff.
yeah,
But I'm with you, especially and I definitely remember, obviously back in the day, and back in the day when they used to more aluminum foil wrap the
yeah.
dogs as opposed to paper,
Mhm.
when the heat would capture in the bun and the bun would be all soft, and those dogs were good. But at my age, I have to be careful of my nitrates consumption.
Uh, that's so tough. They had a moment in time. I think that's fine. Whatever. You get to enjoy that chapter of your hot dog life. I'm still in that hot dog chapter, and it's great. I'm loving it. No, that's true. I
All
did
right, so
see. Well,
oh,
I was gonna
good.
say I saw Johnny's comment and kind of tying off on the U.S. beating the
Ah,
Canadian on the hockey side of things. I think
that
that
was
is the one thing that is still unfortunate. I think Canada still beats us out, obviously, on the cannabis
they
side of
won.
things.
They win the
So
gold on cannabis
yeah,
progress.
that's true.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't know. I don't know. This was the thing I worried about with the end of the year not being sort of a hard deadline. Once we got past the end of the year, until the midterms, as far as I can tell, there's no particular meaningful pressure, right, to get it moving. Now, it's good to hear your conversation, with Trent yesterday, where he's talking about, hey, these things take time, and it's Nicaragua, and it's Epstein files, and it's maybe, possibly some skirmish in the Middle East now with Iran, and now we've got tariffs, announced, which maybe at some point we'll try to cover here, because I think there are some market and economy implications there. um, so, I don't know. There's a lot going on. It sucks that it's taking this long. I get his point, and he would know better than I would of what that process looks like, and how long it should take. And I would say that's the vibe I'm getting from people within the industry. They're all like, as long as it happens this year, we're good, sort of mindset.
Hmm. Which I mean makes sense. I think, of course, people are not impatient, but are
I
demanding
am.
of
I'm
something
impatient.
happening. Yeah, yeah, fair enough. Because it has been kind of waiting so long. But yeah, you're right. I think when you're on the other side of it, obviously there'll still be room to go, and I think a lot to go from there. But yeah, I understand. I think the interesting thing that Trent brought up, generally, just because I think he's focused in on Virginia and kind of the progress there. I think on top of it being the first Southern state to adopt, and it seems like it's on track to adopt an adult use program and really clean up its, you know, intoxicating hemp kind of issue that it's had, which feels very kind of reflective of what we've seen across the US or what we might see across the US. But hitting that tipping point of having half US states have an adult use program on top of 40, states having a medical program, it feels like it's really just at that kind of groaning tipping point of like something needs to change. We've hit this point. It's been there for a while, I
Right.
know, but it just feels like that thing that might kind of turn it over. We'll see.
And what's been weird for me too is this sort of recent spat of negative press around cannabis, right? Starting with the New York Times, right,
Mhm.
opinion piece, and just seeing others online that have fairly large followings, kind of take a dump on it. It's frustrating, right? Like I get that you might not like it, not you, McKinsey, right, but the you influencers I'm referencing.
Mhm.
Um, I get that maybe you don't, if you're outside and you smell the smoke and that bothers you, right? I get that. And you don't want it around kids. No one wants kids using, right? No one wants kids driving cars or eating too much sugar or on their smart devices or smoking cannabis or booze. No one wants kids doing any bad things, of course. That goes without saying. And it always makes me crazy too when it's like, we can't legalize this because we want it out of the hands of the kids. Like, well, It's not
Yeah.
how it works.
It also goes further than that really quickly, just before you finish. I feel like, because I know things used to be an 18-year-old cutoff used to be the thing. It's all 21 now. So it is also protecting, I think, young adults. So I think it goes beyond just saying you're a child or you're not. Obviously, it protects children, but it
Right.
really is a more conservative, I think.
Right. But I'm frustrated by the people. And honestly, I feel like I'm seeing it more from people what I'd consider right leaning, conservative, Republican, whatever you want to call it, coming down against it. And these are supposed to be the people about freedom, right? We want freedom. We want freedom. I want freedom.
Sure.
And so I'm sitting there thinking, shut the F up. If you genuinely believe in freedom, let me do what I should be allowed to do as an adult at a minimum in the privacy of my own home. At a maximum, you can't, I saw that video that was getting passed around on social, the kid getting the dropper of cannabis who was, I think having a seizure or something.
Yeah.
And as he takes it, it calms him down. It's incredibly hard to watch, to see a kid, right, suffering like that. But anyone with a effing soul who sees something like that and doesn't say this needs to be immediately available medically, and obviously it's not going to be for everyone, it's not going to solve anyone's problems, and the people who keep saying, all the cannabis people say this solves all your problems, but it doesn't. No one's ever said that, right? They're gaslighting the crap out of you, and we all know that. But I'm not sure that their followers do. But if you're on the side of freedom, you should be pro cannabis, right? Maybe not in your face, but the ability for another adult to do whatever they want to, as long as they're not harming someone else, you should be for that. When you look at it from a medical perspective and see the impact that it's had on a few people, you are a heartless POS if you don't do whatever you can to get that valuable medicine to people who need it. So I don't know. That's been really frustrating, really disappointing to see those takes by people.
Yeah.
But I think thankfully we are heading in the right direction, just not as fast. I'm super impatient, but I'm ready for these changes soon.
Yeah, I think it's fair. I did see that video as well. Painful to watch and see, but I think important. I think it is uncomfortable, obviously, to watch, but I think it is an important reminder. And even, we had Lauren DeFalco on in the middle of the week this week, and he had suffered, I think, for a long time with
Someone
epilepsy.
who, absolutely needs it from a medical perspective.
Yeah. And so I think his perspective on kind of what keeps him motivated in this time, as we're still kind of waiting for this to turn over, is basically that he has that personal experience, but you don't necessarily need that personal experience to, like you're saying, want to bring people better tools. And I think we, of course, talk a lot about sort of general cannabinoids and THC, but also CBD, of course, and some of the other cannabinoids, CBC, all these other things that can get tapped into and be used in ways that, are less obvious or less kind of exciting, but still really important to people who need them. So it's time.
And like, how stupid and uninformed are you? I don't want to be too extreme.
Okay.
How much of a complete imbecile are you?
Sure.
That when you say, this is a substance of, losers and, whatever, dumb people and slow people who won't accomplish anything, they're lying, right? There's no way they can't know that many of the top athletes use this as a form of recovery, so they don't have to, kill their liver with aspirin or, risk getting addicted on opioids. Some of the smartest, best Steve Jobs, others, right? Top CEOs building the most amazing things, the most hard driving people who would use it as a tool, however they were using it, right? Medically, for recovery, for relaxation, for whatever they're doing. To then go out with that messaging, and I get what they're looking at when they're trying to connotate that message. I get it, but just to put it out there as a blanket statement is just unfortunate. I do believe they genuinely know better. I think they're just saying it anyways. And I think, maybe that's just a function of I've got to get clicks. I've got to get whatever world we live in today.
Yeah, I think there's some degree of that. I do think there is at least active work to kind of dispel some of those myths when they come up. But I have also seen some positive coverage as well on cannabis. And I think also in psychedelics. I think I had retweeted a piece from The Economist. They were covering compass pathways and kind of the opening up there. So while I do think obviously you still see these kind of echoes of either it's prohibitionist sentiment or it is just, like you're saying, kind of a way to get clicks and have a counter view and, whatever.
Right.
But I think that just slowly works its way out over time. Again, as people have access to these, state programs, they understand the difference, I think, ultimately between kind of a gray market, an illicit market, a regulated market. So yeah, I think that only just changes with time. I think it's more what happens, obviously, from a government perspective now. I think you're right. There is always kind of, I think the thing about it is, there are these kind of not distractions, but other important things going on that might kind of take away time. But I don't think that that slows down. So I don't see why that couldn't get done kind of in the meantime as well. I don't know. We'll have to see.
It just sort of hitting me now, like, man, I'd love to see, right? And I know one of the challenges with the cannabis industry is to get all of these companies, working together, getting all of them contributing aggressively to the overall direction, of the industry. But it's like, I could sit here and envision a commercial you'd run during the Super Bowl, and it's, CEO or top tier athlete after top tier athlete saying, I'm a cannabis user, right? I'm a cannabis user. I'm a cannabis user. And maybe, you can't do that today because Schedule One and they can't take cash. But you could say, I'm a cannabinoid user. That's legal, right? That should be a perfectly legal commercial, and let people draw the inference that they need to draw from it. And really work to not, obviously you want to promote your business and promote your products and everything else, but just promote some normalcy around it. And again, I think it's just one of those things where 66, 70% of the population, they know this already. But it's just frustrating to see the negative press. And I certainly would love to see the cannabis industry punch back a little bit if they could.
I think they are too. Oh, am I cutting up?
Are you, or I don't know if it's me or you.
Let me do this. Okay, perfect.
All right.
Okay, I think
got
it's
you back
me.
now.
I see Johnny's question.
I don't know if
Thank you so
that's
much.
dead,
Seeing
right? I
Johnny's
think
question
there's a
about
bit of
Florida.
a bit of a fight over that, right?
Yes, the signatures I think that are kind of getting pushed back on, right? I think I saw coverage from that, I want to say
Right.
earlier this week. I think Trent also talked about it yesterday, and it seems like it's in progress. Obviously, such a key state and market to focus in on. They've got a great medical
Right.
footprint, but yeah, I think it is time, obviously, to get them an AU market. Let me see from Johnny as well. Wish more companies would produce CBG and CBC soft gels as well. Hard to find. Again, I think that's something that you get when you see rescheduling, when that continues to get some research, opens all that access up, and I think just more interest and support and dollars even to kind of lead into that development and support.
Yeah.
So yeah, I think that's where we are on the cannabis front ultimately. Yeah. It's a tough wait, but I think there are opportunities out there. I think we've talked in the past about even kind of taking a global approach. I think there are some good opportunities there. I've been tracking kind of performance. That's been a good story, even though again, I don't think necessarily dollars are aligning there yet. I'm still curious in terms of when that really picks up traction, because it has been doing well from a global perspective with that exposure, obviously to the US as well.
You don't mean picked up traction from a performance, you mean from an AUM perspective.
From a dollars perspective, yeah. Yeah.
And it's the opposite, not to get ahead of, I think, does Jane still do weekly? Oh, I can't say the ticker. Does she do weekly global updates like she does the daily US updates?
It's very.
I don't know if I've seen one in a while.
I don't think I've seen them in a while, no.
Well, you may see a redemption this weekend.
Tough.
It's the opposite.
Yeah.
Weird, which I'm with you. But that's the funny thing about the business we are in, which is relative to flow. Sometimes you look at things and sort of no rhyme or reason.
Yeah. Do you think
but all good?
What? I was going to say, do you think any of that, I know we've talked a lot about sort of like the gambling culture and speculation culture and all that stuff. I think there's been a lot of interest in, or seemingly a lot of interest in the leverage and kind of making that daily bet to some degree and kind of trading around the US side. Do you think it's just more of kind of a cultural thing of where we are now? Do you have any thoughts?
I think so. I think there's certainly an element of that, right, in our financial markets. Yeah, I think there's certainly an element of that. But I don't know that drives why someone picks the US basket over the global basket, right? I think that's far more about what they believe will work over time, right? Not about what has worked, because we know the answer looking backwards, right? The data is clear. The data is not so clear. And the timing of when that, would happen is not so clear. But I'm definitely in the camp of Schedule 3. It's good for US companies. Doesn't mean that it's bad for the international companies. In fact, it probably gives them a way and a mechanism to come in and compete, within the US. But again, depending on how that all works, still kind of, running behind in terms of they need to get very aggressive with M&A. Just again, hearing Trent talk yesterday about, how licenses will be allocated, right? So the U.S. companies have a foothold in many states, obviously already. So their ability to, well, and he's really more talking about that from a medical to adult conversion, right? So I guess that's not even applicable here.
Still limited state
So yeah,
licenses versus non. I think that's fair.
yeah, and it doesn't mean again an international company just can't come in and start a medically focused cannabis space that's operating nationally, because at a national level it should be, once that changes here, legal.
Mhm.
Um, but yeah, I think everyone's betting that the U.S. basket will be better, and that makes sense to me. And then I guess the tricky part is, when we're actually going to see that change, because I would have said 4 years ago, and then I would have said 3 years ago, and I would have been wrong. Or I was
Yep.
wrong. Then I would have said 2 years ago, and then I was still wrong then.
I think you
One
still
year.
have to March though,
I think
right?
it's going to happen
In
tomorrow.
March.
Every day I'm going to show up and say, I think it's tomorrow.
You're not saying today, next minute?
It's always tomorrow
Oh, okay,
until it
fair enough.
happens.
All right. Feels like a moment. Maybe.
So, anyways, but I think that's, yeah, people are just making the bet on what they think is going to happen. And some of this leans into what we're talking about in our green room, which is not green, it's a digital green room, about performance and how people look at performance. And especially when you're in the business of what we are in, which is building products and selling products, investment products. Investment products, by the way, for the social media ad algorithms that are hearing us talk about cannabis and then blocking our ads because they think we're selling cannabis,
Yes.
which again only proves to me AI is still not working yet. But anyways, but it does. It speaks to that performance thing, right? So how you might look at a U.S. basket or versus a global basket of any category. I know we're talking about cannabis here in particular, but you're not. I don't think people are picking based on Dan's skill set to pick stocks in those categories. I think they're picking based on what aspect of the theme they think is going to drive their future returns, right? And earlier we were talking about another product, and how people are looking at its performance lately, and might be disappointed by its recent short-term performance. And I was, of course, quizzing and grilling you, as I do, on how would you overcome, right, an objection like that, right? What do you do? Do you say, you're right, sell our product, see you later? Do you find them, another product, which is, there's always nothing wrong with that, right? And just making sure, they're fully diversified and all those other things. But I think when you're just talking about a manager and I'll call it a general active strategy, I think really what you want to do is look at that manager's long-term track record, right? Are they a good manager? Do you have a good jockey on this horse of stocks? And if that long-term track record tells you that you do, I think that's when you add to those managers, right? It's not, oh my God, I'm concerned they've got a cold hand right now and it'll never come back. It's possible. It'll possible they'll continue to underperform for a long, long time. But if you have a long data set to look at, and again, past performance is not indicative of future results. I get it, but history often rhymes, right? And so if I've got someone who's demonstrated a good track record at doing it, and they're in a quarter or two or three or four of not doing it, and it's hard to do, but my mindset is if I still believe in that manager, I should be adding here, because when things work back in their favor, as I've seen historically it has over time for them, I'll be rewarded by that, by being a patient investor and putting my money with managers who I think are good and talented. I think the thought process is different, in a global basket versus an international basket. It's less a bet on the manager and more a bet on what I think is going to be that best opportunity. But that's the answer I would have given you to the question of how do you approach or get an advisor, or, I say an advisor because our sales guys are really not talking to retail investors per se. They're talking to financial advisors and getting them to think that way. That's how institutions think, right? Institutions, as I saw, Mark Yusko's quote the other day, stack risk to diversify their portfolio, right? And create opportunities for them. And he was talking about it as it relates to crypto, but it resonated with me relative to, at least for me, how I'm approaching the cannabis space, and I need to be better about approaching it from the psychedelic space. Of I just need to be diversifying my risk and adding to it. And if I got to the point where I believed reform wasn't coming, okay, I'm going to change my approach. But at least for cannabis investing, I'm not there yet.
Yeah, that's fair. I think that is true. Are you saying that for psychedelics and sort of the biotech side of things, you're just not putting in as
I
much? Or
don't have nearly as much in psychedelics as I do cannabis, which relative to at least short-term performance is
yeah,
unfortunate.
yeah. What are you gonna do? That's fair enough. I see Stevie's
Yeah,
comment
Dan
about
is bright and works hard.
he does. Interesting to see more states. I think that's what you're going to continue to see, especially as sort of the
Yeah.
intoxicating hemp winds down. I think people want it. Americans seem to want it in
Well,
general.
and isn't Texas is going to follow whatever the CS something or
Yeah.
other A, and it's going to really broaden, I think, medical access in the state. Right. One of the challenges is how limited it's been in its scope. I know that was recently expanded to really going to open up opportunities in the state. And again, from your guest yesterday, and I tweeted this earlier, posted this earlier. I don't know if you call them tweets anymore, but posted this earlier on X. When Trent was talking about how when they started enforcing, illicit cannabis, intoxicating hemp, whatever it was, even though Virginia's medical only, they're right across the border. It's not difficult to get a card, and they saw those sales jump. Boy, that really resonated with me in terms of the opportunity ahead, why I still believe in it as changes are coming. Even medical getting Schedule 3 alone done is going to be so helpful to move people off crap products to what should be age gated, regulated, quality tested cannabis products.
Yep. And I think that's obviously an example here, but I think we've also, you could look to Canada, and I think they've done a great job of showing their conversion from kind of an illicit market into, as
Yes.
they have a regulated
And
market.
again, Canada, I'm sorry we beat you girls in the
That's okay.
finals,
What are you
but
gonna do?
it's all
That's
good.
okay. They still have us beaten in cannabis. I think that's for now what matters, but whatever. Let them have the win. We'll have the win. All right. Well, then I did want to touch base sort of on the general market landscape. You mentioned tariffs. I do want to get to that, but I did want to just highlight as well that you were on Schwab, of course, talking with Nicole, which was great. Kind of giving a high level view into not the vibe of the market, but kind of what you're seeing broadly a little bit.
Vibe of the market. Who
The
says that?
Vibe check the market a little bit. It reminds me of Kyla Scanlon. She does the vibe session. Have you heard of that term?
No.
It was in like a few years ago when basically everyone was saying it feels like we're in a recession, but obviously we're kind of in a similar thing now where the numbers still are relatively strong. We're seeing some cracks. I know inflation's kind of picking up again, and
Is it?
I think it had gotten better, and then I think most recently we had seen a little bit more stickiness, and then even with like jobs and stuff like that. I know high level things.
So I should grab the numbers, but I saw it from Anthony Pompliano and from Kathy Wood. They were, I have to look up the name of the company, but they track prices. And they do it sort of faster than you're going to get from the government and CPI. And they're showing almost to, deflation, negative inflation. So maybe that's changed dramatically. Maybe that number is off, but yeah, it might be worth looking at that number. It seems, and that's what's interesting too. I think about the news on the tariff stuff today. It seems like from what the data I'm seeing, inflation is really dramatically moving down. And supposedly the tariffs, were going to, create all this inflation. It didn't seem to, and I get conceptually why that makes sense, but it hasn't seemed to, right? Since all these things have started. So I don't know. It's weird, but maybe I need to get myself up to speed on some current data if you're seeing, something that's otherwise.
I think that's fair. I think in general, that is the trend. I think it was based on more of kind of the PCE data that we had gotten. I think things look a lot better than they had looked over the past, basically several years, or at least last year. But I think it's still higher than expectations are slightly. So I think it's just not cooling in the same, like as quickly as people would like it in general. Yeah. But I think that's a general trend and fair. Yeah. Okay, fair enough. What do you have thoughts on the tariff side of things? I know that was just announced this morning in terms of it seems like they're being deemed illegal, but what does that mean?
I mean, I think I've been on record here to say, oh my God, if the Supreme Court rules against them, it's going to be really bad. But I've been trying to like take in all these different views and opinions this morning relative to the announcement. And I think, I do think it's bad. I don't think that their decision is wrong, just to be clear. So I'm not saying that at all. I just think that relative to the things that we've sort of been counting on, right? Sometimes the market operates on optimism and belief in opportunities ahead, right? It's a forward pricing market. And to get all of these deals done, to try to get the cost of us exporting goods and be able to produce more at a more competitive price, to try to get more investment in jobs and production here in the US, of which many of those deals, right, haven't even started, probably haven't even been approved in the other countries, whatever, by their legislative bodies. But just getting that change back in that direction, more productivity here, more job growth here, more competitive landscape for people who make products here and want to export them into other countries, you know, it's gonna, it's just gonna make it harder, right? But it doesn't make again what the Supreme Court said wrong. I'm not saying that. But I'm saying, if now the process, and I don't know that this is entirely true, but if the process is I got to herd cats in Congress to make these kind of changes, good luck. I have more confidence that these knuckleheads in Washington, D.C. will shut the government down than help it run more efficiently. And so I don't know. I don't think it's so good, and I don't know what will be the right answer. It sounds like Trump thinks that he's got other tools to deal with tariffs or tariff-like changes. But I think maybe in the absence of that, it wouldn't be. And you'd have to really do the analysis on this. But I'll start with saying we should just charge the same tariffs that other people charge us, and then we should look at the balance of trade too, and just put a standard scale that says if we're buying 10x of what you're buying of us, and then look at the tariffs between the two, right? What do they charge us for getting goods in their place, and what are we in turn charging them? Even if we're at equal tariffs, but we're buying 10x of their stuff and they're only buying 1x of ours, there'd be some scale that would adjust based on the trade imbalance. And then just keep it even. Doesn't matter what country, treat everybody the same, and just try to make it a bit more competitive, either for US based companies or maybe a bit more of an incentive to build things here and again try to compete selling in other countries, right? Let them genuinely compete on the quality of their products, not on price subsidies.
Okay, fair enough. I am curious. I mean, yeah, that's fair. I am curious though. I feel like in terms of when obviously the tariffs were first announced last year, that caused a huge amount of uncertainty and a huge amount of ultimately red in the market as people were trying to kind of figure out what that would mean and where things would go. Do you see a similar kind of reaction? I haven't checked.
I was shocked by the market going up, right? Because to your point, right, everyone was all freaked out. From the data I've seen Dow 50,000, and I've seen us heading towards deflation, right, not inflation. So I was a bit shocked to see the market go up. The funny thing is just, again, listening to various takes, someone was like, well, in some way, this is like, QE for the US in that there's about 130, let's call it 40 billion of money coming back to companies in the US, presumably that have paid this tariff, that is going to go to whatever, right? Investment in their infrastructure, M&A activity, job growth, that money just gets itself back into the economy, right? As opposed to going into the coffers, the US Treasury. So I'm like, all right, well, that's an interesting way of looking at it. I know people are kind of freaked out over how do you account for it and get all the money back, but it's not that hard. If it's easy to track it and charge it, it's pretty easy to track it and reverse it, I think.
I mean, I feel like, yeah, that's been the story of the past, year and some has been, I feel like, dialing up, dialing back, dialing up, dialing back, and maybe finding
Very
a sweet
volatile.
spot.
Volatility would be the best way to describe the cannabis market and our current administration.
Yeah, that's fair. Looks like more talking about betting. I know this is probably a speech to text thing, but Cowshe, which is very funny to pronounce it as Cowshe.
He was probably typing, right?
Type. Yeah, that's extremely fair.
That's awesome.
I think it is a good reminder. Like you were saying, I think like some of the tools and tech are not perfect yet by any means, but no, Cowshe, for sure. I mean, I think that is interesting.
It did that to me the other day on a word. It was funny. I looked at it and I laughed that that was how it interpreted the word I said, but sorry. Go ahead.
totally unrelated as well. I feel like, I don't know if you find this to be true as well. I feel like, I don't know if it's the new software update on iPhone, stuff like that. I feel like it's
Mhm.
constantly making mistypes. Maybe it's me
Typos.
getting slow or something, but anyhow, I
They
don't know if
kind of
anyone else,
mess with you.
yeah, maybe. I don't know if anyone else is dealing with that, but yeah, I mean, I think it is, I feel like while we've seen some good solid numbers, some strength, I think even just looking through earnings generally, things are looking relatively okay. Of course, Mag 7 struggling generally, I know, with some exceptions, but yeah, it does feel like it's going to get choppier to me. So I feel like it's going to require maybe more.
Yeah, I think this news today throws not a bomb in whatever, but we'll
Wrench.
mix things up a little bit, economy wise, budget wise, whatever wise, job growth wise, maybe even. Um, but getting back to the point about being on Schwab Network or whatever yesterday, um, I said that with rates likely coming down the second half of next year, right, with a new Fed president. Um, I do think that will be good. And yes, Mag 7 has come down, but you could easily point to high multiples, high valuations there. You could easily point to all the CapEx cost of which, maybe isn't quite getting the same returns on that money yet, but hopefully we'll see over time. But I also think too, there'll be a lot of winners and losers, and some people have spent a ton of money and will get nothing out of it, and their stock will have to be repriced and adjusted accordingly. But I did sort of point out too, one of the interesting things in terms of what is working this year, and you've talked a lot about it on this show, industrials, right? We have a what was your phrase again the other day? We have a dog in that horse.
Oh, that was so weird.
Um,
Whatever. No dog in that. Yeah. Pony in that. Whatever. Yes.
um,
That's
so we have a horse. What is the phrase? It's horse in that race, or it's a
dog
dog
in
in
that
that
fight.
hunt.
Or dog in, yeah.
Um,
Or that dog
it's like a
won't
dog
hunt.
in the hunt or a
Yeah.
horse in the race.
There are too
But
many.
either
Yeah.
way, we have one of those. We have a dog or a horse,
Mhm.
and that's done really well this year. Obviously, commodities have done well, but that's a bit more of a cyclical thing, I think, in terms of at least how I look at it. The bright spot I thought, and maybe good for cannabis and psychedelics industry, is small caps have been strong this year. So I think that's been fantastic, and hopefully that's a bit of a canary in the coal mine relative to one, job growth, which would be great. Two, probably hopefully planning on counting on lower rates, lower cost of things. But yeah, I mean, the Russell 2000 has done much better than the broader market, and we'll see if that continues. But I'm going to stay optimistic for the second half of the year, and I'm just still going to sit in the side between now and the middle of the year of a lot of volatility, a lot of uncertainty. Um, not an unreasonable thing about to think for investors to be thinking about rebalancing, and at markets at all-time highs, is it the worst thing to take some chips off the table? Maybe you do miss another leg up. All right, well, you've had such a fantastic run, enjoy it. But maybe you don't, and it's an opportunity to add a little bit more value to your portfolio. But you got to pick whatever's best for you.
Yeah, that's fair. Well, kind of tying together some of the things you're saying in terms of the winners and losers element, and also the kind of picks and shovels for heating and ventilation and all of that. Did want to highlight, that's what it is. Dog in that fight. Thank you so much.
We're both goofballs.
It's so tough. I don't know, whatever. But speaking to that, did want to highlight two earnings that were interesting and kind of caught my eye this week. One, which is a big one, Comfort Systems. We've talked about that a ton. Ticker symbol FIX, FIX, great ticker symbol. They announced earnings this morning, technically delivered their numbers yesterday. But that's a name that's been doing incredibly well in general. And I think they are also tying in, of course, with the AI side of things as well. But was just looking at their numbers. I think for this short week, they're up a little bit under 5.5%. But even today, I think they're up 3%. So, but that's on top of it. I think if you zoom out and look at the year for them, I think they're up, pull the actual numbers. So I have it up over 50%, which is kind of crazy, especially for a larger name. I know.
Need like a button where you push and dollar signs shoot out into the screen or something.
Yeah, it's a good one.
Cash register button, cha-ching, cha-ching.
Exactly. But that's, again, some incredible performance, and yeah, just an interesting kind of one to highlight, I think, there. And then on the other side, on sort of the loser side of thing, unfortunately, there's been a lot of coverage on kind of the automotive side of things. I think there was some earnings for Carvana that was down pretty steeply. I think on the other side of earnings, what I think they had announced just soft numbers, and then also some pretty weak guidance. We were also talking to somebody in the office, and they were saying they knew someone who had sold to Carvana one of their cars, because I think that's, the majority of what they do is sort of reselling cars and rehoming cars, not rehoming cars, reselling cars. And was saying that he had shopped around at some places and Carvana like way overpaid for their car. So he's like, I'm looking for another car to sell Carvana. So anyhow, that's anecdotal in general, but in terms of performance, that one was a weak one. And I think we do have Brad Lamensdorf coming up next week. That's a holding that he has been holding on to, which great. I think he's gotten not lucky, but he's been able to pick some solid ones out of that automotive one. I think most recently with Carvana, and then previously, I think, with CarMax. So stay tuned for that to get what? Is there something else?
I think instead of the phrase "not lucky," Brad would use the phrase "skilled."
That's what I was saying. Not lucky. I think he is. Yes.
Okay.
That is true. We'll talk. That's why I tried to revise it. But yeah, he's made some great picks, I think, is what I would say.
There's a stock today, right? He sent us an email. I posted on it. I don't know if it's got into our stocks on the move yet, but what is the stock? Ticker symbol is CCOI. So it's Cogent Communication Holdings, now sitting down about 31%. And that's the number 2 position in an ETF that Brad happens to manage,
just
where he is not lucky, but
skilled. Yes. And I think we'll talk about this, I think, on that Nooner, but if you look also year-to-date performance for how he's doing, not to tease it too much, but it's an interesting story.
No, tease away.
It's an interesting story. Some positive performance on the year that is way outpacing what you'd find, I guess, just from like an inverse if you were looking at the market. Although actually, are we for the year positive or negative? Because I feel like it's been pretty flat.
For him or the markets?
Just the market.
I want to say after yesterday, I thought maybe it would be down, but if you give me a second, it is. I show it up about 0.5%.
I see that too. Anyhow, despite that, in an up market, then let's say he is putting up some positive numbers that, let's say, outpace by a few magnitudes the performance of the S&P. So anyhow, we'll talk about that.
Russell 2000 up 5.75%, though. That's bueno, right?
Well, that is bueno.
That's for you, Bad Bunny fans. I got NASDAQ down 2%. That's no bueno. Also for you, Bad Bunny fans.
There you go. Good Spanish.
And I've got gold up 16% for those of you that enjoy jewelry.
Are neutral. Yeah, there you go. Fair enough. I think we had a bit of a lull in some of our reposts. We're starting to post back a lot of our Nooner replays. So if you've missed some old ones, we'll have them there.
Don't they say content is king?
Content
That's what they tell us.
It is true. It is true. But yeah, it's out there for you to see it. But in terms of that specific name, that's one that he's held for Charlotte's Web. He's held that in the global side of things, I think, for a while, and that's been a big boon.
Yeah, I think, any of those companies who are going to play into this Medicare covered CBD stuff, great opportunity, huge opportunity, really.
Yeah.
So yeah, that will be good.
Yeah.
I think what's interesting about it is the CBD opportunity won't sort of be all about, California cannabis per se, right? This is probably going to be stuff you can grow just about anywhere, right? Wherever it is the most efficient, the most cost effective. Obviously, our own favorite Glasshouse brands is one that does grow in California, but also does grow at a very cost efficient price. But I think that's where you'll see some of the winners, right? Is finding that efficiency in the growth and the processing. And then obviously ultimately having, a good product and getting access to that marketplace to sell into, insurance coverage, which will be huge for them.
Yep, that is true. Opportunity. I think, the CBD thing was just a great extra bonus, I think, in terms of what we saw from the executive order.
Yeah, it's good news. Here's the upsetting thing is one of us clearly is talking cannabis stocks down because they're going down a little bit more. So I'd like to blame you if I could instead of me, if that's possible.
That's extremely fair. Let me take a look across the board and see if there's anything.
And in fact, just to prove it's not me, I actually bought more options today, by the way.
Nice. You're taking your own advice then, I feel like, right? Of you believe in the... That's so interesting.
I bought the January 27 threes.
Okay. All
Not a
right. We'll
ton,
see.
just a little bit. Just keep adding a little bit at a time, and I'm
There you go.
extending the date out because I think it, unfortunately, don't think it's today or tomorrow. But I did see someone post. They were asking, I think something about the timing of when, so would we know in advance when an announcement's going to be made? And my guess and bet would be no. And my hope, I think, I got to think about this more, but I'd love for them to possibly announce it after hours, because we're definitely going to halt. And again, in these stocks, OTC, micro cap, not a lot of trading volume. When the news happens in the middle of the day, a little bit like the executive order, right? The advantage goes to size and speed in terms of who has the ability to move those prices around. If we can get the announcement, or information on the announcement or the filing or whatever hits the Federal Register, maybe, or something like that, right? If we see it after markets, there's some time for everyone to digest. And then those that are coming in will do what they're going to do, and those that are going out will do what they do. But at least people will be sort of more prepared at the same time, and it won't just be those who've got their finger on the trigger and some size to push the price around. But yeah, if I'm a betting man, and I am, I bet that we have no advance notice, and my preference would be outside of market hours.
Would you say after close over weekend? Because I know we were getting a constant stream last year of comments being made either over the weekend or on Friday after close, or even over a long weekend. We've got some long weekends coming up.
I'd prefer after close in the middle of the week.
Okay.
If I get it like on a Friday night, it's just going to be a stomach turning weekend for me to see, what happens on Monday, because anything could happen. As much as I think it will be awesome, I thought, Trump's EO, even though I knew Trump's EO is not worthless, but doesn't give you the reform you need. It's good, but it's not it's not material good. And so this next step for me is even regardless of the lawsuit. And so, thanks, Stevie, for the heads up, by the way. Even for the coming lawsuits, right? I'm just feeling, based on a feeling only, highly confident that those aren't going to be an issue. So yeah, if they did it on a Friday night, like my stomach would turn all weekend, and then I wouldn't be able to sleep Sunday night because I'm going to be watching after hours trades, and then possibly have a heart attack on that Monday, even though that we've got still a long way to go for more reform. But
yeah, well,
that's
if
it.
that happens,
That's how it would go for me.
That's fair. I was gonna say, hopefully, if that does happen and it is over a long weekend rather than kind of in the middle of the trading week, you have some cannabis to get you through, ease that anxiety.
You said hopefully if that does happen. I know that you've been secretly planning for that to happen, and you're planning on taking over the whole company. And so I want people to know that I'm not intending to have a heart attack. And so if I do have one,
oh, I'm on the other side for me.
Oh, damn, you are? Sorry, on my screen.
Perfect. All right. Well, fantastic. Again, I know we're still waiting, but I think there's a lot of good opportunity there. I think great to kind of check in on what is a still developing story, I think, across tariffs and kind of inflation still. And yeah, so I think the cannabis conversation will continue next week. So stay tuned, check our event center, follow us on social. We'll post all
What's
of
the single best advice you would give people tuning in right now to know for this weekend?
Best advice
about anything, life, anything. It's not about cannabis.
That's a lot of pressure. Let me think. Let me read this really quickly. One sec. Wait. Thumbs up from Independent. CBD is great, but genetics and delivery methods are just as important. I think that is true, or it can be true. I guess depends on the person. But I would say, weirdly, from the psychedelics side of things, I think in some ways, I don't know, have a holistic.
Something about the third eye, or what is this?
Maybe. No, I was going to say, I feel like there's been a lot of conversations in terms of care and medicine, whether it's, psychedelic related or cannabis related or anything. But I think a lot of the coverage from talking with guests who have been involved in some of those medicines and things like that has been to also have a holistic view of your life. So also make sure the basics, drinking water, having good food, socializing with others.
Take care of yourself, basically.
Take care of yourself. Find ways to make the lives of others easier, better, stay connected, all that stuff.
It's good advice, Mackenzie.
What's yours?
To do whatever Mackenzie tells you to do.
Perfect. All right. Well, that sounds good.
But
Get
don't
sleep.
have her murder me on the eve of Schedule 3 just to take over the company.
That would be so sad. You've waited so long. You've got to get to enjoy it. No, it'll be good. Very excited. I think we'll have to. I know we have 420 kind of coming up, and we'll have some stuff to look forward to around that. But yeah, we'll definitely have to put together something big. I think to celebrate rescheduling finally making its way through. All right. With all that said, thank you guys so much for being on. Appreciate it. Appreciate the comments, the questions, all of that. Stay tuned on Monday and have a great weekend. Thanks so much.
Before investing, carefully consider the investment objectives, risks, charges, and expenses found in the prospectus, available at advisorshares.com.